Coming up in this special edition Brightline construction update, I document the completion of track laying on the Orlando line with the installation of ceremonial golden tie clips. Running between Cocoa and Orlando, Florida, the Orlando line is a completely new rail line that Brightline is constructing, linking the Florida East Coast Railway corridor with Central Florida. Track construction was completed with two headings coming from the west and east, with the meeting point about halfway between State Road 520 and the St. Johns River. More specifically, it occurred just east of what is known as the Long Bluff Overpass, crossing an access road for the Tosahatchee Wildlife Management Area. If you are just watching this video to see the golden spike, you can fast forward to the 16-minute mark of the video to see that happening. In the meantime, I'll provide an overview of the area and a boots-on-the-ground look at how the final 1,600 feet of track was assembled. Starting here, I'm flying east toward the St. Johns River. All of the track in this view was constructed over the previous week or so. When I arrived on site, track was built up to near this intermediate cantilever signal. About 1,600 feet west is where the track that was built from the west came to an end and would be the site where the two ends would come together. This is also where the final rail train was unloaded, which you can see in the link above. Moving to ground level, and the first thing we'll see is a section of rail being cut. A special rail saw and bracket are being used to make the cut. The holes that were drilled in the rail as part of the delivery process for loading and unloading the rail train are being cut out. These holes do not meet the spacing for the joint bar that will be attached. The goal is to minimize the total number of holes in the rail, and this is a standard practice in rail construction. The cut off section will be sent off for scrapping to be used to make new rail. This speed swing lifted the section of rail so the cut could be completed. At this point, the speed swing operator began the process of threading the rail onto the ties. All of the work being done in this video was completed by a crew from RJ Corman, working under a subcontract from HSR Constructors on the construction of the Orlando line. Moving back to the cut they made earlier, new holes had been drilled and the crew is in the process of installing the joint bars. These joint bars are temporary, with the joints being welded together later on in the construction process during de-stressing. Since it is only temporary to get work trains and equipment across at limited speeds, only a single bolt is required in each rail. More bolts would be required if this track was in revenue service. Here, the speed swing is moving the piece of rail they cut earlier out of the way. With the rail now threaded into place, a crew member came through with a bolt machine to loosen the tie clips. Since these are concrete ties, tie clips are used instead of spikes to hold the rail in place, and they maintain a more precise gauge compared to spikes. The clips come pre-installed on the ties from the factory, which is why they need to be loosened first. Specifically, these ties use the Vossla W30M fastening system. With the bolts loosened, a crew member follows behind to make sure the clip itself is loose and over the foot of the rail. If it is not, they will use a crowbar to shift the rail to free the clip. Another bolt machine follows behind them, actually tightening down the clips and locking the rail into place. You can see the ties rise slightly as the clips are tightened. Moving up the line toward where the connection would be made, and the speed swing is continuing to thread rail onto the ties. And here's a quick time lapse of the rail threading process. Here's a look from where they are building the track to the completed section. While waiting for them to get things completed up to the connection point, here's a walk up the completed portion headed west. An initial drop of ballast had been completed prior to the final rail train delivery here to make the tracks train safe to the end. The very end was not ballasted since the locomotives had been on that end of the ballast train. With the crew nearing the connection, some gold hardware was brought out in encouragement. With the rail up to the western track that was completed, the crew shifted into connection making mode. They started by getting the rail lined up and ready to cut to the needed length to match the existing rail. With it lined up, the cutting began. With the cut completed, the speed swing dropped the rail onto the ties. They then brought in a tool to drill the holes needed for the joint bars. With the rail cut to length, holes drilled, and joint bars in place, it was time to bring in the golden clips to finally connect the roughly 42 miles of rail linking Cocoa and Orlando. They used some handheld bolt machines for this purpose. And with that, rail is officially connected. And here are a few shots of the clips in place. After photos and video were taken, the clips were removed to meet Federal Railroad Administration requirements that permanent track material needed to be in original condition, unpainted, and replaced with standard clips. To wrap up my coverage, here are some more aerial shots of the area with the track fully in place. On this final day of track construction, a crew of about 8 men were able to construct about 3,000 feet of track. With track constructed, focus would shift to several months of dropping ballast and surfacing the track to the final standards. During the production of this video, I was wearing the necessary PPE and following any safety direction given by the crew. I would like to thank Brightline, HSR Constructors, and the RJ Corman crew for allowing me to be on site to document this major milestone in American passenger rail history. Here's a quick look at this area a few months later with ballast in place. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Also check out my social media pages.